I just realized that I never introduced myself. You can refer to me as Nin if you want. Welcome to part 3. Thank you to anyone who made it this far. I'm just gonna go over the Ds for this episode since, like I mentioned before, it's pretty big by itself. Also, some people have already asked whether I'm going to be doing another list by streaming service or genre. That really depends on the demand itself, but probably not for now, at least. The plan is to do a weekly, more in-depth horror review, however. Basically, diet half in the bag from Red Letter Media. Any suggestions for stuff to review would be very welcome, so please leave any suggestions below. Okay, we are finally on the Ds. Now, before I start off on this list, I need to make a quick note and just talk to you about these first 3 movies as a whole, because they're not direct trilogies, but it's part of this giant series of movies that are all connected in some form or fashion, and I feel like it deserves some special attention because it's something unique. So let me talk about that for a few minutes and we can get onto the list. So this series that I'm talking about is called Dabbe. Now, do you know what that is? Because I sure didn't. When I saw these movies show up, I was wondering if I even needed to watch them because I was like, oh, are these sequels? Does this break my rule? I'm not watching the 5th movie in a giant series if I don't know the prior context. So I had to do a bunch of research. I say a bunch, more like scouring the internet because I could hardly find really anything that was written in English explaining what the hell this Dabbe series is. Here's the basics of it. Dabbe is a set of Turkish horror movies exclusively focused on jinns, which is basically kind of an Islamic demon from the Islamic religion. It's something to keep in mind is that all these movies seem to follow the exact same story beats, and if you watch them, you'll know what I mean. So you'll predict the flow of these pretty easily. It's not necessarily bad to do that, but when it hinges on twist endings, it feels too formulaic. And okay, I guess we can talk about these actual movies now. The first 2 I watched boil down to the same premise. Character is haunted, and they seek pro help. The third is where it gets really interesting and different. Our first movie in the Ds and the number 39 on our list is Dabbe 5, Zehr-i Cin, I think. This movie in particular was entertaining. It did a few cool, interesting shots, but it was also really fucking dim. I had a hard time discerning things when it got dark, not content-wise, not like, oh, dark story. I mean, like, literally when lights were turned down, it was almost impossible for me to even look at what was going on. It didn't particularly scare me, but I was invested. As for this particular movie, you do feel a bit of sympathy towards the woman, the main character, and it does a good job of establishing a feeling of hopelessness, which is present in all these movies, really. Okay, real quick, I had to go look up the plot of this movie again because all these movies are named so similarly. I got mixed up at which one it was. Anyways, the plot to this one is a woman and her husband, Dilak and Omer, or Omar. They're living in this house, and Dilak thinks that, oh, they're haunted, and the husband refuses to believe it, but they're pretty fucking haunted. So they go to an exorcist to get some help. More things start happening. Their friends try to help them too. There's a big twist ending toward once you get to it, and it again really cements that feeling of hopelessness and that they were just kind of trapped from the beginning. Running time was over 2 hours and it felt way too long. The camera quality and shot choices weren't that great most of the time either, and you will eventually get frustrated at the skeptic characters. 6 out of 10, I would only recommend it if you like the Dabbe movie that I definitely recommend, which is later on. Number 40 in the second Dabbe movie on Netflix is Dabbe 6, or how it's written, Dab 6E. I have a lot of the same thoughts as the previous movie. It's a little more confusing and convoluted than the other one. This time the plot isn't, instead of a husband and wife, it's about a psychologist, her sister, and her mother who got killed by her sister. And they all think, oh, the sister killed it, and the sister claims, oh, it was these demonic beings with black faces. And so the idea is, oh, she's possessed by a jinn, so they call in some special help through an exorcist psychologist character. And that part was interesting. I liked his character. I think it's slightly worse than the 5th one, you know, Dabbe 5, Zehr-i Cin. Also, it was like 15 minutes longer. It was like 2.5 hours long, probably a 5.5 out of 10. Same recommendation that I gave for the previous Dabbe movie, meaning if you like this next movie on the list, then I would recommend you watch all of them. But this one, at least of all. Now we are on Dabbe the Possession, which is the 3rd in the overall series. And let me make this clear, these movies aren't really connected chronologically, so you can just watch them in any order you want.
lastiklerin arasından tıklayacaklar bilir.
Subhanallah.
Hayda. Bu ne şimdi?
But yeah, this is the best of the three that I watched, and it's a found footage film of all things. And it's also the one I vividly remember, like, all the events to. Basically, a lady doctor woman films an exorcist man for her thesis as he attempts to exorcise a jinn from the lady's childhood friend woman. What the hell did I write here? I wrote gal pal? What the fuck? She's skeptical. He's a spiritual guy. You get the idea. This one was actually a bit unnerving compared to the other ones. They made good use of the found footage, although the shaky cam definitely becomes obnoxious. 7 out of 10. No, you know, I changed my mind. 7.5 out of 10. I definitely recommend it if you can stand the running time, although I think that unlike the second Dabbe movie that I talked about, it really fills it out and it needed it. I would especially recommend these movies in general if you just want to see something that's about a different religion's take on demons. It is familiar to like the Western Judeo-Christian depiction of demons, but yeah, it's similar to it. It's similar and different at the same time. So it'll be nothing that's too crazy or out of this world or hard to connect to, like the shit Zehr-i pulled. But yeah, if you definitely like this one, then I would recommend watching the other ones maybe, although they are kind of long. So you can just watch this Dabbe movie and be perfectly happy. But yeah, I definitely would recommend this. Okay, we are finally off the Dabbe movies and we are on to the next one, number 42, which is Danur. I Can See Ghosts. I hope I said that right. It's an Indonesian horror movie based off a bestseller, apparently. It certainly has that feeling of a novel being adapted into a movie. You can usually tell from like the script, like how verbose the characters are or something. It's not a very good movie regardless. The ghost lady actress is pretty creepy on her own though. She does a good job portraying it. So, you know, that's good for her, I guess. I guess watch if you want to see an Indonesian horror movie. It's basically another child gets haunted by ghosts and a parent / older person who had experienced the exact same things when she was a child tries to get help from her old ghostly friends. It's kind of like a boring Insidious. In fact, you know, that's a perfect description. It's boring Insidious. It even kind of has the same ending. Well, not the same ending, but it has the same like climax. 5 out of 10. Nothing to really get angry or rage over, but I don't know, if you're maybe like 5% of people who have read this book, then watch this movie, I guess. It's okay. Number 43 is Dark Light. I was excited because this is the first like real kind of classical feeling creature feature movie on this list. But you'll see. I was somewhat engaged with this movie and I did sort of enjoy my time. More than anything, like I said before, it made me realize how much I missed creature features. When I was a 11 to 14 year old child, that's what my life was. I would wake up every Saturday morning and just watch really badly produced creature features that Sci-Fi made. You know which ones I'm talking about. So yeah, I was kind of excited to watch this, even knowing that it might not be the best thing in the world. I like the disconnected storytelling at first, but it feels ultimately pointless. It doesn't really add or detract from the movie in any sort of way. It just kind of felt, yeah, it just felt pointless. It didn't really need to be in there. A lot of this movie also had suffered from the same thing. Like, a lot of this movie was either pointless or it just didn't make sense. It felt like 20 minutes of exposition was just missing, which is usually a good thing. You don't want too much exposition, but if you're not going to explain things right anyways, then you need something. The plot is basically that a woman and her child, their husband's not separated, they move into this house where she lived with her family a long time ago, and it's out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of this giant field of like grain or something, grain or corn, I can't remember what it was. And every night, these weird like entity humanoid looking things with like spotlight, like really bright flashing heads keep showing up, keep somehow ending up inside of her house and like stalking her child. And eventually, you know, the daughter gets kidnapped, husband gets shot because of a mistake, police are like, oh, you did it. She runs away and tries to get her daughter back. That's basically the movie. Now, if you're wondering why I was so disconnected and all over the place with this description, well, that's what the movie was. Sorry. So a huge gripe that I have with this film, and this is really just a bunch of nitpicks, but I just couldn't help but criticize this while watching it. It has to do with the monster's design. I thought it was really cool at first until I just kept seeing it. Psst, don't show your movie monster so much. It shows all the bad parts about it. Keep it in shadow. So yeah, that's a big issue. After I realized that it was just basically a buff hive thrall from Destiny, complete with those similar sound effects, this creature's design just didn't make sense. And again, this is all like nitpick stuff, I suppose. The idea is that this creature doesn't eat meat; it consumes energy from people and like keeps them as like living batteries that it can constantly draw out from for generations to generations. So why does it need rows of like shark teeth and really sharp claws and Bigfoot strength? Why is it built like Bigfoot to begin with? If it's just eating energy, I mean, wouldn't logically that it doesn't even need claws? It just needs something to hold whatever their prey is down, or just some sort of paralyzing agent like a venom, like something that a spider would do. It just doesn't make sense. So yeah, sorry for talking so much about this mediocre movie. I like creature features a lot, so it just kind of bothered me. 5.5 out of 10. I would recommend it if you love monster movies and haven't seen one in a while, because it does have that classical feeling. Otherwise, you can ignore it, it's not good. Hey, we're on a good movie now. Number 44 is Darna Mana Hai. It's more Bollywood horror. This wasn't directed by Ram Gopal Varma, but it was produced by him, so you're gonna get a lot of the same vibes. It's also the first anthology horror on our list. It has one of the most bizarre opening credit sequences I've ever seen. I'll put it in if I'm able to. Other than that, it was very enjoyable. It was more like a bunch of campy goosebump episodes put together.
नहीं बहुत डरावनी स्टोरी
करण हेडलाइट चालू करो
क्यों डर गई
करण हेडलाइट ऑन करो
आइस क्या
क्या तुम समझे नहीं मौत मेरी हुई है.
The frame story, okay, so the plot and frame story of this movie is that it's a bunch of friends going on a camping trip. Their car breaks down in the jungle, and they each tell a story to pass the time while they're waiting for somebody to come back and fix the vehicle and get out of there. There are 6 stories in all. My favorite possibly being number 5, Ghostly Lift, which is about a driver who's apparently giving a hitchhiking ghost a ride to another cemetery. Also, for any Bollywood fanatics out there, which I'm not one of them, but I recognize these people, there's a few famous actors sprinkled throughout these stories, or actors you see a lot. It's a very fun horror movie. It's one of the better anthology horrors that I've seen. The best one is still Ghost Stories. Go watch that. It's very, very good. It's on Hulu. It's not the scariest, but it's definitely the most fun. It was kind of like a Tales from the Crypt movie. Some of the stories were actually really interesting and good. Some of them were just okay. That's the thing about this movie. Stories that weren't good were at least entertaining or funny. So yeah, it was a 7 out of 10. Check it out. I think you'd really enjoy it, because I sure did. Number 45 is Day of the Dead, Bloodline. This movie was almost as bad as Cult of Chucky. Bloodline is one of the few remakes of George Romero's Dead series, and I don't even think that series is all that great to begin with. At least past the first few movies. I enjoyed the first few movies a whole lot. Like Cult of Chucky, it is boring, joyless, awful, and the characters are just really bland and completely pointless. I can't tell you to steer clear of this movie enough. I can't even imagine hardcore zombie fans liking this. 2.3 out of 10? Because I have to start getting more precise with these scores, otherwise everything's gonna blend together. Number 46 is Deadcon, another film for the baffling category. This movie is about 4 to 5 different ideas and plots that have no connection to each other. It's like watching 10 minutes of 4 different movies with all the same actors. I actually didn't watch this one alone either. I watched it with my roommate. So me and my buddy, we went to go watch this movie because I was like, oh, the plot that's written on Netflix is that it's like Insta stars or YouTube stars going at a convention and spooky things start happening. I thought it was gonna be really terrible and awful in a funny like way that I can make fun of, like that. What was it, like that Jake or Logan Paul YouTuber movie where they're all on a plane? I forgot what the hell it was called, but I don't know how to describe it. It's so fucking weird. It's basically okay. So it's what it says is it's vloggers that go to a convention and they get haunted by a website thing. I honestly can't even tell you what the hell happened. I still don't really know like what's going on. There's also a general feeling of incompetence throughout the movie. There's multiple consecutive shots that are just slightly off center, to feel like a nuisance. There's really bad CG blood too, and they randomly 80-yard voice clips were unnecessary. Sometimes twice in the same clip within a span of 3 seconds. It's, oh my god, it's so confusing. I don't know, why did you do this?
Just feel like... I'm sorry.
Oh my god! It's not even funny!
Oh yeah, and they're just really bad editing too. I laughed a lot, but it also angered me. And nothing made sense in the end either. 3 out of 10 watch if you like really badly put together messes. Also, they probably spent the entire budget on the hotel that this movie was filmed in. Number 47 is Deadly Detention. This was also an awful movie. I was expecting at the very least a fun and gory slasher that I could laugh at, but it wasn't even that. It's just dumb teens running around a prison. The plot is basically a bunch of teenagers get detention, but their school is infested by possums, so they have to stay at a mental asylum. They couldn't find anywhere else to put them, like a library or literally anywhere else. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, it wasn't really any good. If I hear that girl talk one more time about her stupid vagina, I swear.
What's the story, gay and hoary? Just because he sees what's in the vending machine doesn't mean he's getting any candy. You're gross.
Whatever, she just gets off in the attention.
How do you know what gets me off? I bet some of you would love to be dragged into my black hole.
It's a 3.5 out of 10. Don't watch, it's not even worth laughing at. Number 48 is Death House. This is another baffling movie, one right after another. Oh boy. It feels a lot like Antidote, where the premise far outmatches the budget of the film.
Thiel, age unknown, expertise in satanic arts, known for crucifixion and for turning victims inside out.
We just gave him what he asked for.
I can't even tell you what the point of it was. So the movie description says, oh, it's like there's a high-tech virtual prison that's built like Dante's Inferno, and there's like a breakout or something. That sounds interesting, and then you watch the actual movie, and the Dante's Inferno stuff just kind of goes out the window. There's really bad CG. It feels like it's trying to be a bad B horror action movie, and we all know those never work. You can't attempt to be that. You have to just be that. I can't tell you what the point of it was. It was a jarring mess that tried to be artsy. I feel really bad that Tony Todd and Danny Trejo were in this, even if it was like a minute each. By the way, if you guys don't know, I know this about Danny Trejo. I don't know if Tony Todd does this. Danny Trejo is sort of famous for just kind of being in whatever films he's asked to by like new independent students who are just trying to get out on the film scene. So that's probably why he was in this. But yeah, this movie also has a philosophical depth of a 12-year-old. If you bother to watch, you know what I mean, but don't. It's not worth it. This is like the only baffling movie where I wouldn't even tell you to watch it. 3 out of 10. Nah. Number 49 is the legend Death Note. No, not the show. I'm talking about the live-action movie. Oh, there's nothing I even really need to say about this. People lampooned and have talked about this movie to death already. It's a Naked Brothers band member plays Light. Meanwhile, that same band member's brother got and executed a fantastic role in Hereditary. It's just a really dumb adaptation through and through. The character's script and the plot points were all really stupid and dumb, which is the exact opposite of the source material. The whole point of Death Note is that these characters are smart and they're like trying to outwit each other, and this movie is just a Looney Tunes cartoon chase. The actor for L at least does a great job, and he thankfully got a new role in Knives Out. Go watch that instead. That's a fantastic movie if you haven't watched it already. If there's anything that you do need to watch in this movie, it's a marvelous chase scene at the end. Yeah, I'll put a link to it in the description. It is actually fantastic. Four out of 10. Watch if you want to see something horrendous but still laugh. Number 50 is Delirium. It's a somewhat interesting movie about a guy who's trying to pass his 30-day probation inside his late father's mansion, while he's either going crazy or actually being haunted by his father and sadistic brother who made him complicit in murder in the first place. I like how awkward the main character is. He kind of reminds me of Michael Cera, but a lot easier to watch. The female love interest, unfortunately, is annoying. I like the set design and the premise. It wasn't great, but it wasn't really bad either. 6 out of 10. It's a real toss-up for recommendation. I think the average movie watcher would probably enjoy it. I mean, I enjoyed it, so I guess I'm average. Not special. Boring. Complete. Give it a watch if you like this sort of thing. Number 51 is Demonic. It's a horror with anachronistic storytelling, kind of like that Dark Light film. That's about a lone survivor who's trying to explain to the police why all of his friends, except this girl who's missing, are all dead through flashbacks and that sort of stuff. It's an interesting take on the generic haunted house movie, but the police stuff isn't as interesting as it could have been. Basically, they go to investigate this haunted house that was supposedly connected to the main character's mother, and it's like he's going there for closure, where a bunch of people died, and then crazy shit starts happening, and that's how we ended up here. If you want to see a good horror movie with police stuff, don't watch this, because I mean, this movie was fine, I guess, but it wasn't great. But if you want to see a good movie with that's like a police procedural, watch The Exorcist 3: Legion. It is probably one of the best horror movies I've ever seen. Watch it now. This movie is a 5 out of 10 though, kind of middle of the road. You won't hate it, you won't especially like it either. Number 52 is Don't Be Afraid of the Dark.
Who are you?
It's a dark fantasy movie more than an outright horror, but I enjoyed it. Guillermo del Toro didn't direct it, but his name was on the writing and production, which makes a lot of sense when you watch it. It has some really cool visuals, the set is nice, and I always like the idea of fairies being like monsters. And it's sort of a creature feature, but it's better done than Dark Light. It has the same story beats you'd expect from a movie like this. It's not going to wow you or anything, but it's entertaining enough. Apparently it's based off a made-for-TV movie, and I kind of want to check it out now. 6 out of 10 recommend if you like dark fantasy stuff. This kind of is just going to depend on you. Number 53 is Don't Knock Twice. It's about an estranged daughter who's haunted by an urban legend, which involves a title, and her mother is trying to help her, basically. The script and some of the directing is really good. You get some nice creepy visuals, except for one incredibly shameless jump scare. The acting, unfortunately, kind of crashed and burned the whole thing. That and, I guess, the character roles themselves. It's very difficult to connect with any of these characters. They're all douchebags or just annoying and whiny. 5 out of 10. It had an interesting idea. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. It's a toss-up as far as the recommendation goes. It's, I mean, there's just better stuff out there. Number 54 is Doom Annihilation. Oh, I made another little note here before I watched the movie. I wrote, "This is gonna suck. Just got done watching. It sucked." Okay, yeah, that's about right. It's trying to be an 80s B action movie without any of the charm. Just for your information, this is based off the 2016 Doom that got released, in 2016. It was a fantastic game, and I don't understand how they made these mistakes. The characters sucked, and the references were very corny.
And they are gonna rue the day they fucked with me, Doc. I'm their ultimate nightmare.
Can't believe you're bringing that weak ass shit.
You got your toy. I got mine.
Why not just make a Doom movie about the Doom guy? It doesn't seem very difficult to me. I mean, look how popular John Wick was. 4 out of 10. I mean, if you're gonna watch it, you're gonna watch it, if you know what I mean. Okay, really quick, we need to talk about Dark Sky. So this movie got added after I finished the D's, but before I started editing, so I decided to go ahead and review it instead of putting it in the Lost Movie episode at the end. But it's not numbered right now because it would throw off literally everything. I wanted this movie to be really good because it's a horror genre that hasn't really been explored enough or explored well. It's like a paranormal haunting movie, except it's alien. Essentially, this family is getting visited by a bunch of greys and they start fucking with them in initially small, innocuous ways, and then it ramps up, leading to random birds flying to their house. They start losing hours of their time to do weird, creepy things that they don't remember doing. Odd stuff like that. Really, the most interesting thing about the movie was the effects that these aliens were having on the family rather than the aliens themselves. The plot doesn't really come together well. It kind of just falls all over the place with how things progress. And of course, the biggest problem is, what the hell is this family supposed to do? They are aliens that slip in and out the whole time, fucking with them without their knowledge. How are they supposed to stop this? Also, it doesn't help that the characters are really dumb. The only defense they have is to stay together at the end. And the first thing they do when it comes to the climax is separate from each other. Also, there's a really awkward pubescent teenage scene early on where they watch porn and the main character teen awkwardly gropes another girl because he doesn't know what to do. I don't think this is a terrible movie though. It's a 6 out of 10 at least. Watch if you want to see alien stuff. Other than that, I can't see any point recommending this. Alright, thanks for joining me on this awful endeavor. I'll be back again next week. Hopefully you guys will be too. Leave any suggestions for any movies that you may want reviewed separately as a part of a later thing, since that's a plan when this list is done. Thanks, see ya.